Well, Trump just had to be Donald Trump and impose new tariffs, and this is not going to bode well for Republicans in a cycle. Again, these are the current maps. As you can see, Cook Political Report is saying 51-45 with two toss-ups. Actually, no, four toss-ups. I can't math. Sabato saying 52-45 with three toss-ups. Cook Political Report saying 53-45 with two toss-ups. Inside Election is saying 51-43 with six toss-ups, I think. Um, oh no, five. Race to the Wire is saying 50-48 with two toss-ups. And we're just going to go to a blank map and analyze where it stands. First of all, you might think at first that this map is more favorable for Democrats. Because, look at it from the perspective of how many seats are up for each party. So, in that perspective, Republicans are defending 22 seats. Democrats are defending just 13 seats. But here's the other thing. You have to recognize where this is in relation to where we stood in the 2024 election. Because most of these states, Republicans won easily. And as you flip between the maps, if you look at the incumbent parties that, have it, Michigan and Georgia, Democrats are defend in states that Trump wound up winning in. They're the defendant in states that Trump wound up winning in. The only Republican-held seat that is in a state that Kamala won was Maine. Granted, Kamala won Maine by much more than Democrats lost in Michigan and Georgia. And to be fair, the other Maine senator is a Democrat who won in a landslide, whereas Michigan narrowly kept their Democratic senator, and in 2022, Georgia kept their other Democratic senator. So you still have that involved. Nonetheless, though, it's still tough. And looking at close states that we have, New Mexico, Virginia, New Jersey, Minnesota, and New Hampshire were all close wins for the Democrats. New Mexico was 6%, New Jersey was 5.9%, Virginia 5.8%, Minnesota 4.2%, New Hampshire 2.8%. The only close state that Republicans have defend is North Carolina, which broke for Trump by 3.2%. So overall, looking at that, it actually is a bit more favorable of a map for the Republicans in that perspective, because most of these seats, they really don't have that much to worry about. Nonetheless, though, Trump now has tariffs, and we can look at what Trump's approval rating is. Or maybe we could see what the favorability polls are, or not. Why don't they have those? Gallup has polls. Gallup has some polls to look at. And looking at the Gallup polls, we see, based on some of these polls, right now he has an approval rating of 43%. 43% right now. The average at this point is 52, though. And his disapproval rating right now is 53%. So, and, that's just something else you have to consider. Now, Republicans very strongly approve of him. Independents, though, not so much. Less than 50% of independents, less than 40% of independents approve of the job he's doing, and 4% of Democrats. And here's the other thing I'll say. In American elections, Democrats win if you can get them to turn up and vote. The reason why Democrats lose is if you can't get Democrats excited politically and you can't get them out to vote, and they don't vote, then Republicans will win. But, if you can get Democrats out to vote, Democrats will win. This was proven in 2020. Record turnout leads to a Democrat win. 2008, amazing turnout and a Democratic win. But then look at 2024, lower turnout corresponds to Republican victory. 2016, lower turnout Republican victory. 2014, one of the lowest voted in midterms in U.S. history. It's not really a coincidence that Republicans win their highest amount of seats since 1928 in the House. It's all because good turnout is what Democrats need to win. They need to focus on turnout. Republicans, on the other hand, need to make it so that people don't want to vote for Democrats. But, based on Trump's new tariffs, I think it's going to really backfire on them. As for the Democrats, though, their approval rating right now, I can't find it, but it's not very good. Democrats aren't very popular either. However, Cory Booker just gave, that 25-hour speech, and that's really going to, invigorate Democrats. And as such, even though New Jersey was close, even though it had, looking at swings between elections, New Jersey had one of the biggest rightward swings. It was 10 points. Only New York had a bigger swing towards the Republicans. Despite that, though, New Jersey I'm still going to put in the safe Republican column. And the reason why is because Cory Booker, who's going to run for re-election, has just injected serious energy into the entire Democratic, fan base. Oregon, Harris won by 14.3 points in a weak performance. For Democrats, I think that will be safe Democrat. Colorado has shifted so far to the right. Harris still won the state by 11%. It was a former swing state. You have to realize that John Hickenlooper was actually governor before he became senator. Now, he didn't win in 2018, but he did in 2014. He won by 3.3 points in a Republican wave that saw Republicans win governorships in Wisconsin and even Michigan, as well as win governorships in states like New Mexico and Maine. And 2010, we saw Hickenlooper win by almost 15 points, and again, a favorable environment for the Republicans. So I think that Colorado is going to be safe blue as well. I think that aside from that, Illinois, again, look at where Illinois was. It was safe Democrat in the past 4 elections, and while Harris only won it by 10.9, and Dick Durbin might retire, he hasn't announced his retirement yet. And I think that based on the state's strong political trend towards Democrats, including, most stunningly, 2016, so a slightly favorable cycle for Republicans, Tammy Duckworth won the race by 15.1% against Mark Cook. And as you can tell here, Cook was an incumbent who won in 2010. So, an incumbent lost their seat in Illinois by 15 points. I think Illinois will be safe Democrat. Massachusetts and Rhode Island are obviously going to be safe Democrat, and same for Delaware. Looking at, these states that voted for Harris by over 13%, including Massachusetts by 25%. Now, what I've been hesitant on is Virginia. Do I put it safe or likely? Because in Virginia, all the pollsters are putting it as safe. All the pollsters are putting Virginia as safe. And this is where we really have to start looking at candidates who are running. So, Mark Warner, we don't know if he's running yet. He could run against Glenn Youngkin, who is governor of the state, who won the election in 2021. He won governorship in Virginia by about 2 points. But how did he do against Mark Warner, who in 2020 won this seat by 12 points, and who held a seat in 2014 in a red wave where Republicans flipped 9 seats? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Based on how it voted for Harris by only 5.8, I will put it as a likely Democratic state. And I really don't see any other safe Democratic states I'm missing. Republicans have tons of state seats. I'm just going to fill them in really quickly. all these states I think are safe Republican, and I don't even have enough time to really go into them. But but they're all but like look at the election map. You know, looking at Jackson Jude, all these states wound up voting for Trump in by over 15 points. I think that they'll be in safe hands. Now, for the likely column for Republicans, Nebraska is one. Mainly because Nebraska, on the same ballot that Trump won by 21 points on, in the Senate race, Republicans won the regular election by 6.7. They won a special election by 25 for Ricketts. But for Fisher, 6.7% against an independent. And that same independent candidate, Dan Osborne, he has an exploratory committee. He could do it. He could do it. But I don't think he will. Still, though, I'm putting it as a likely Republican state. Iowa, I think that the tariffs that Trump is opposing is going to hit Iowa pretty hard. And Kim Reynolds is not very popular, so that might cause negative coachials. But in a state that Trump did win by 13 points, I wouldn't be too worried. Florida also going into the likely column. Haven't really seen any evidence that there's a strong Democrat from Florida. I haven't really seen, Florida Democrats, but race to the White House thinks it's going to be close. And we don't know who Democrats are going to do, but this is a state that could very well go back to being, more competitive like we've seen it in previous election cycles. It could go back to very well being more competitive. Remember how close Florida was in 2000, and I still don't think we're totally past that. Texas, also, again, put the right candidate up in Texas, and that state could very well get close. In Texas, if you put up the right candidate. More importantly, Cornyn could retire, and the Attorney General Paxton have expressed interest in running. And if there's a big primary in Texas, that could really cause Democrats to have an advantage. Now in Alaska, Mary Peltola has expressed interest in running for the Senate, and Tom McGeek has also been mentioned as a candidate. But the thing about Mary Peltola is that she's likely going to run for governor of Alaska instead. So if that's the case, again, this is a state that Trump won by 13 points. In that case, Alaska is likely going to be Republican, but I'm not putting it as safe yet because if Peltola runs, then it could very well go into the lean Republican column or even a tilt Republican column because Peltola has been able to win over Republicans before. And likely Democrat states, we have New Mexico, and I might be jumping the gun on this a bit, but Minnesota. First of all, Harris won Minnesota by 4.2 points in a bad election cycle for Democrats. Biden won it by 7.1 points. Second of all, Klobuchar won the race in Minnesota by 16 points. I get that you have a retiring incumbent in Minnesota. I get that. But they have plenty of strong Democrats. The incumbent lieutenant governor has thrown their hat in the ring. And there's other potential candidates. There are other Republican candidates, but they aren't as well known. And again, agriculture could really impact southern Minnesota and cause them to come out and vote blue. Now for Ohio, I'm going to put it in the lean Republican column. Ohio is a state that Trump won by 11 points. However, candidate quality matters. It's a special election. It's against John Husted, who has been lieutenant governor before, and he's running for and he's gonna run, we think, but it's probably gonna be close. He shows it's being close. Sherrod Brown and Tim Ryan are both candidates that could win, even though it's unlikely. We don't even know if Hustet's running. Remember, Tim Ryan came within 7% of winning against the incumbent J.D. Vance. Oh, wait, no. J.D. Vance was an incumbent. And Brown was just ousted, but maybe he could try to reclaim his seat. I don't think he will, but I think Ohio will be competitive. Now, these 5 states, I really think are toss-ups. But I don't want to leave the toss-ups. So I'm going to go with a gut on this one. Because I could go over and over and over and over and over again based on all the candidates and candidate quality. But I don't really have time. I'm just going to go with a gut. These are all tilt states. New Hampshire, tilt Democrat. And you know what? I lied about not mentioning candidates. I have to. So, in New Hampshire, for Senate, it truly could be a toss-up. Shaheen is retiring in New Hampshire, and we could see, and Chris Pappas is going to run. Scott Brown narrowly lost against Shaheen in 2014. Sununu is not ruled out as being a candidate. And remember, Chris Sununu is very, very popular. Look at how much he's won some of these elections by. Look at how much he won the 2020 election by. Look. He won it by 30 points when Biden won the state. That's crazy. So, I think that New Hampshire absolutely has a potential with a weak Democrat and a strong Republican. But given how I think it's going to be a Democrat-leaning environment, I would not count on it. Maine, I think, with Susan Collins is still Republican because I just can't see Susan Collins losing re-election. I just can't. Even with Jared Golden and Janet Mills being strong candidates to replace them, especially Jared Golden, I just can't see Susan Collins losing re-election. She survived 2 big Democratic elections before. I can't see her losing. As for Michigan, just based a bit on history, not even going into candidates, I think Democrats going to win Michigan. This really leaves Georgia and North Carolina left. Looking at Georgia, Jon Ossoff has to run for re-election. He won the runoff by only 1.2%. Kemp is seen as a potential candidate for the Republican nomination. Now, if Marjorie Taylor Greene wins, then might as well just put Georgia all the way as a likely Democratic seat. But it's Ossoff on Kemp. My gut is telling me, though, Georgia is going to go Democrat. My gut is telling me Georgia is going to go Democrat. Reason why I think Georgia is going to go Democrat is because Georgia is, they have the incumbency advantage, and a lot of the voter suppression laws are very unpopular there, and it could really increase turnout if people are motivated enough. Plus, Georgia didn't really see that much of a swing towards Trump. Finally, North Carolina. Now, Tom Tillis was censored by the North Carolina Republican Party over his support of gun control and same-sex marriage and is vulnerable to a primary challenge, whereas Roy Cooper and Willie Nickel are expected to run for the Democratic nominee. But I think that, based on North Carolina being close and with infighting, I think Democrats are going to win North Carolina. So I have this being 52-48. The only gain is that Democrats wind up flipping North Carolina. Again, I'm not saying this is the answer that you really wanted, but this is what I think is going to happen.